Hi, I'm Angie. I'm a little sick, sorry. I thought I would tell you my story. When I was about 21, I was working in Lake Tahoe, and I don't know why, I just happened to go to this outdoor church, and I heard someone, the pastor, talk about how Jesus died for my sins. And I know I'd heard that a million times before, but I'd never really heard it. And so this time I heard it, and it just pierced my soul. And I went home and I thought, is that true? That can't be true. So I don't know where I got these Bibles, but I found, this is way before the internet, where you had access instantly. And I found 4 different versions of the Bible, and when I wasn't working, I spent every minute scouring those different versions to see, is what he said true? And then I would go back on Sunday and listen, and then I'd go back home and read and read and read, and I went, whoa, it does say that. But then I had a lot to struggle with. Well, there were 2 things I was struggling with. I know some people have this childlike faith I've always envied, but that was never me. So I had intellectual doubts, and then I also had the most difficult part was, well, the commitment thing, because I knew I would have to give up a lot doing things my way. But I did struggle mightily with, nobody raises from the dead. He didn't raise from the dead. Maybe he walked the earth, but he didn't raise from the dead. I really, really struggled with that. But then I thought, well, but if it's true, and it is here, it does say it's true, that in order to be in an eternity with God, you need to accept Jesus, and I don't want to be for an eternity in hell. And I said, well, so I just prayed, and I said, well, Lord, if this is true, and this is you, and you did raise from the dead, then I give my life to you. And all of a sudden, it's like my eyes were opened, kind of like in that movie where they couldn't see the baseball players, and then they could see the baseball players. And it's like the curtain opened, and I could see that Jesus did live, and that he did die, and that he rose from the dead, and he loved me. And it was just wonderful. Of course, it didn't take long until that glimpse on the other side zipped up, but that was my first experience. But I still struggled mightily with the resurrection thing. I just couldn't believe it. So I read, and I had a lot of other doubts. So I read C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. That helped me a lot. And then I plodded through Evidence That Demands a Verdict, and that really helped me a lot. So my intellectual doubts in those areas were helped. I still had lots of other struggles, which I'm sure many of you have, like, well, what about people who don't believe and things like that? And I thought, well, I just know that I have to be obedient to what I know. And I don't know. I don't understand everything. I just know that Jesus died for me, and he loves me, and my sins are forgiven. And then during that time, so for a while, it was like everything went from black and white to bright color in my life, and I had this peace and this relationship with God. But then the doubts kept creeping in, and I would have to say that my most rebellious time was after I made that commitment, not before. There was a long time where, because of my own issues, I was living in fear rather than faith. And I even remember one time my dad said to me, my sweet, sweet dad, Angie, where's your faith? And I thought, well, what are you talking about? But I was not living by faith, and it was, my peace was gone. But then my relationship with God changed again when my dad died. The hardest thing that ever happened to me in my life. Anyway, I was in the car, I remember exactly where I was, and I heard the Lord speak to me. Now, I'm not crazy. He didn't say it audibly, but I heard it nevertheless. He said, Angie, is everything good only in the past? And I said, yes, Lord, only in the past, which is really odd if you would know my past. I had a terrible childhood. But I was saying, well, Dad was in the past, and Dad was just so loving, and he'd always been there. And he said, no, Angie, I know the plans I have for you, for good and not evil, to give you a future and a hope. And so after that, my relationship with him improved, and I just strive every day now to know him more and more. And I know he loves me, and I can't wait to see him in eternity and see Dad. What's your story? Why don't you tell your story?